Everybody, cheers. Midday and time for another director's commentary. Oh, and here it comes. I should tell you which one we're watching, shouldn't I? Let's pause it right there. Well, this is actually the final episode from season 3. This is Papua New Guinea. And I will get into it as we get into the film. But I will premise all of this by saying, at this point, I actually believed this to be my final Survivorman ever. That's what I thought. I thought this was going to be the last one that I was ever going to do. Of course, I was very wrong in that scenario, as I did go on to produce more, but many more. But at this stage of the game, I thought, you know what, this is going to be the last one. I'm good here. I'll explain why as we get into it. So this is Survivorman Papua New Guinea, the final episode of season 3. Cheers. Let's have some fun. I have to admit, I've really been enjoying this. There are a number of these episodes that I have not seen for years, and so watching them with you guys in mind and being able to tell the little behind-the-scenes stories along the way has been pretty enjoyable for me. So this is not the wrap of it by any stretch. There are many more to come yet. All of the Beyond Survival series, the Survivorman and Son stuff, I got to finish the Survivorman Bigfoot stuff. I'm not sure what is next. I'll have to check the chronology of how I shot all these. Here we go. This is right off the top. This is the tease. Grab my machete. Barry Farrell, the editor, loved teases that had some kind of like, what just happened to it, which he didn't always get those delivered by me to him from when I went off to shoot a Survivorman, but every once in a while it would happen, and sure enough, Barry would end up putting it in. This is what's called the tease, which is we actually, it's a device, it's an editing device, a television series device, if you wish, that can work. In our case, we thought that it did work. It was nice to put in these little teases of what's to come. And this will actually likely be the last time we hear the old school version of the theme song. I think we adjusted that next time we came back out with some more Survivorman.
It's early in the morning on the world's...
That was Barry Farrell, the paramedic, walking along there with me. Interesting that we're showing the journey in on this particular film. I'm not certain as to why we would have done that. A lot of times we weren't doing that anymore, and the network never liked it, but we had the footage. But I don't know why we have it in the show. Let me watch and see.
Second largest island, and the temperature here is already at 33 degrees Celsius, and that's 92 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity, as always, is stifling and as high as it gets. This is, after all, the wet season in one of the most ancient jungles on the planet.
Now, that's not actually entirely true. I wonder why that narration slipped through, because if I remember correctly, my main anthropologist that I dealt with, Bill Thomas, amazing man, really just love that guy. We plan on doing some more work in Papua New Guinea together, if the politics will ever allow. But if I remember correctly, he often taught me that actually the Papua New Guinea jungle is a new jungle. And that there were either very little or no existing placental mammals other than what was introduced. Everything was a creature that, had eggs. I'm really struggling on my wildlife biology at the moment for some reason. It must be early in the morning. My coffee should be working, but it's not. So it's actually a newer jungle, and much, much different feel than the Amazon.
I'm flying over a place on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's the collision point of several tectonic plates where volcanic eruptions and earthquakes are frequent. I could give you all the impressive stats of how many bird and plant species there are down there, but the fact remains, no one really knows.
This whole thing about it being on the Ring of Fire is one of the reasons why in Papua New Guinea You don't have a lot of long-lasting roads into the interior because they just constantly crumble from the shaking and the tremors. They're always crumbling. So they have a very hard time getting roads into the interior, which has led to the fact that it is a wonderfully underexplored place to go, aside from the politics of all of it. And so nature has benefited by the fact that Mother Earth has given those roads a good shake.
This place has been too remote for anyone to accurately study. Where am I? Papua New Guinea. Deep in the heart.
By the way, is one word, Papua, I believe. Papua. P-A-P-U-A. Papua, not Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea.
Of this mountainous and untouched jungle, I'm landing in what can truly be described as a tiny remote village. It's not even on the map. Wanakipa is home to a few dozen Hewa, a group of people known to the outside world.
Did you see that? Hang on, I gotta go back a bit. Look at that. You see that right there? You're landing, and you look at the front of it, the runway. It's a cliff. It's a sheer cliff going down. And some of these cliffs and places in Papua New Guinea, when you look, I swear it was like you were expecting King Kong to come climbing over the mountain at any moment. It is an amazingly just stunning environment to view. And to fly into was mind-blowing. And this tiny little village, Wanakipa, they could walk to the town, but it was miles. I mean, look what they have to walk over, right, to get to an actual village. This is just a tiny little encampment, really, more than anything, where I'm assuming either missionaries or miners put in this runway. Probably missionaries. There were Lutheran missionaries here or there 50 years ago, which changed life there, which I talk about a lot in the Beyond Survival series. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's land this plane.
A group of people known to the outside world as savages. In fact, that's what their name means. They still fight and kill each other out here by bow and arrow, spear, and machete. But that doesn't make them savages. In fact, what they desire is a peaceful existence, eking out survival on these remote hills by, if you can believe this, farming. Papua New Guinea is in the eastern part of the planet just north of Australia, and with over 850 indigenous languages, the most in the world, it's extremely diverse. 80% of the people here live in rural or remote areas with no modern facilities. An anthropologist has led me here to meet with the Hewa, and the Hewa are leading me deep into the jungle they call home. Borneo, the Amazon, and the Congo. All jungles with a reputation for being deep, dark, and mysterious.
Now, I think the reason why we included all of that preamble was just because at this point, now I'll bring you into the reason why this was supposed to be my last one, I had become much more knowledgeable as an executive producer, much more skilled, much more in control of my own world. And it's like, you know what? Screw you guys. I want this to be in there. I want to have a little preamble. Of course, back at the network, well, you know, we need to get you right in the jungle. You need to be right in the jungle, Les. Whatever. Didn't care anymore. And said, no, well, this is the cut that you're getting. And so I wanted to show all this stuff because I loved showing the preamble of how I get into these places, and even more so the training that I would do in these places. And if you have not yet heard, I'm coming out with, we found the archive of the training videos that I did as Survivorman before shooting many of the first couple of seasons of Survivorman. So we're starting off with the Arizona one. It may already be up when you see this one. If it is, go look in the video section. Arizona, it'll probably be called, let's title it Survivorman Training in Arizona. Look for that. And there'll be many more, I hope. We're just still going through the old hard drives trying to find what we digitized and what we didn't, what is still viable and what isn't. But this was such an amazing place.
Well, I'm in one of the last great unexplored jungles on the planet, Papua New Guinea. I'm with a couple of members of the Hewa. Their life expectancy is actually 32 years. And anyone who's lived longer than that has at one time led a Stone Age existence. The only way they can survive in this jungle is by having tiny jungle farms. Here, you can't survive off the land. Well, I'm about to find out why. By spending the next 7 days out here, without water, very little food, no gear, and no camera crew, alone in Papua New Guinea. Taliano and Axel, my two Hewa guides, think what I'm doing is ridiculous. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. But they know what I need to accomplish my mission. I need to be left alone in the jungle.
My 2 Haywa guides have dropped me off here. Oh, flies in the mouth. And this is where I've got to survive now. I've got to set some priorities here. I've eaten this morning, so I'm fine for food.
So that pack is basically all my camera gear. The cameras, I think GoPros had still not yet been invented. So the cameras are still a little larger. More than anything, it was the weight of the batteries. And so in there would be a Pelican case and so on. But that particular bag is also, I love that bag. I think it's a Gregory. And the whole bag is waterproof, which in a jungle, it's got to be.
There's water all around me. I can hear it. So hopefully some of it is good enough that it's not going to bother my stomach too bad. I actually should have been out here a day or two earlier, but I've been sick with diarrhea and vomiting for 2 days. So it's taken a lot out of me, and that's how I'm starting off this venture. It rains here nearly every single day, a solid downpour, usually thunderstorms. This is a jungle. It's a rainforest.
I don't remember why I was sick. Huh. But, yeah, my brain's not allowing me to go there. I can't remember why I was sick. But case in point of why I would be telling you that is to point out that, you know, that's what can happen sometimes. I reference this a lot. I still go back to the Castaway film with Tom Hanks. And the fact that in that movie, he started out his lost period on the island with a abscessed tooth. And I always thought that was great writing. I don't know that they probably thought they were just injecting some drama, but the reality is that people in survival situations can't pick and choose when that's going to happen. And you may have the flu. You may have an abscessed tooth. You may have a pulled muscle that is really bad and sore. Anything like that. And yet you are now in a survival situation. So in this case, I'm coming off of clearly some pretty debilitating illness, but I was there. We were only there for so much time. I probably said, guys, I got to go in tomorrow anyway. I got to make this work.
So, shelter. And I've got some time, but I'm going to get down to it. When I was out here training with the Haywa guides, they showed me how to take down a tree.
That's how I got sick. I was out there training with the Haywa guides probably for a week or so before this. And obviously I partook of the water and the food there, and that's what made me horribly sick. I don't know if I mentioned it in this show, but to go to Papua New Guinea, to go there are 6 different kinds of malaria there. And including, there's the one type that is incredibly deadly. It affects your brain and kills you. So you can go on, forgive me if I get the terms wrong, but malefiloquin or Malarone. And the malefiloquin, if that's the right way to say it, somebody put it down below there in the posts. That stuff will mess you up, make you suicidal, mess with your mind and your dreams. You only take it once a week, but not everybody can take it. In fact, my anthropologist's brother became quite ill on it. And then, so in my case, I took, and so did the crew that was now back in the village, which would have been Barry Clark, Laura Bombier, Bill Thomas, my anthropologist, and I don't think I had another shooter with me. But in any event, we all took Malarone, which you take once a day, and you don't have the same side effects, but it does give you insane dreams. But malaria, much worse.
Out here, or at least how they take down a tree out here, if you don't have a bush knife. And let me show you how it's done. If I can do it.
The teeth of the Haywa are ground down to almost nothing due to the constantly chewing of something called betel nut. Yet they can still chew through small trees. When they did it, they literally got halfway through the tree and then broke it down.
Maybe it takes years of living in the jungle.
And that's the thing. Just like climbing a palm tree to get coconuts. Oh, why didn't you just climb the tree? I've seen guys whip up, the little kids whip. Yeah, it's because they're doing it since they were little kids. You can't. There's a lot of primitive earth skills that you can't just do, including hunting with a bow and arrow. Why didn't you just make a bow and arrow? The skill set required to be able to hunt with a homemade bow and arrow, chew through a tree, chew through a tree. I watched Axel, that's his name by the way, the guy's name was Axel, so cool. I watched him chew through a tree, probably thicker than that one. And so many other skills like that. They take years and years and years, well, climbing up a tree to get coconuts, years and years to learn. So it's a lot of bravado to say, oh, I'll climb the tree and get the coconuts. Oh, let's see you do that. Let's see you do that without any equipment. Let me know how that works out for you.
That's how you do it without a bush knife. And that's how you do it with a bush knife.
The final look of this shelter will be that of a lean-to. Here in this particular rainforest, I can utilize easy-to-work-with small trees, hanging vines strong enough for tying, and big fat green leaves for my roof. With nightly rains that are essentially a deluge, they can last for up to 12 hours without breaking. Taking time now to make sure my shelter is strong, and in particular doesn't leak, is vital.
It's the middle of the day now, 1:30 or so, and the heat just becomes quite oppressive right about now. So I gotta stop every so often and just let my body temperature cool down a bit. I'll overheat real quickly.
And that can't be understated. You know, overheating will knock you out quick. And in that situation, you can just feel, you get to that point where your body is emanating heat. You can feel it radiating off of you. And that can be a very dangerous place to be, physiologically speaking. The method for this shelter, I don't know that they taught me anything here because it's basically very similar to what you might do in any other jungle.
You really got to monitor your body temperature in a place like this.
It's during shelter construction with all the grabbing and moving around when I can easily touch something that can either shock, infect, bite, poison, or sting me. So I've got to be careful.
I can't get too close to that camera because that's a big wasp who's decided he likes it. I don't feel like getting stung on the first day out here. Wah! All right, well, step one, done. Shelter from any downpours that will definitely come, but you'll see that in a jungle that is this fertile, it's very difficult to survive.
This jungle is flowing with water, but I've come in with stomach problems already.
And that's the paradox of Papua New Guinea. Of course you can survive there. Of course the traditional indigenous inhabitants know how to survive there. But it's incredibly difficult, much, much easier on a tropical island, for example, where you can just go get some oysters and clams and fish and coconuts. But in the middle of a jungle, that's one of the things I learned about being in the middle of a jungle. Very, very difficult. All that greenery around you, and much of it you can't eat. In fact, often if you do find any kind of like a growth of a certain kind of fruit or something like that, it's actually a remnant from some indigenous peoples from many, many years before, and it's just gone feral. As it is, by the way, all around the world, including North America, there are plenty. Well, for example, where I am down in Southern Oregon, I could walk you to a camas patch that was definitely planted by the indigenous culture of Southern Oregon many years ago, and it's still growing. You can see it in the design and the growing pattern of certain plants. And that in the jungle is how you come across, like I did in the Amazon, I came across fruits I could eat only because some many years before, some people had encouraged them to grow there.
Likely from the village water, so I hope that out here it's safe.
Well, it tastes good enough, but there's no way of knowing whether or not it's filled with parasites. The reality is, I'm pretty confident that this stream is clean and clear. That's the surprising thing. I think most people think that all streams and bodies of water are just crawling with giardia and parasites, and they're not. The stream's probably just fine. I've been drinking from streams in the jungle so far, and there have been no problems, and then there were other times when I got sick, so hopefully this one won't make me sick. If you're wondering what that high-pitched sound is, that's giant cicadas just doing their call. They're very loud, ear-piercing, actually. I'm gonna check.
Big mistake wearing big hiking boots in the jungle. Rubber boots, that's it. Every jungle I've ever been to, in the end, you end up in rubber boots. One is for the mud and the wet, pretty obvious. The other, snake bites. That's why they're always wearing rubber boots up to their knees to protect from snake bites.
What the Haywa sent me in with: fire starting kit, some tinder, piece of vine. We'll see how that goes. And they sent me in with some food, sweet potatoes, what they regularly farm here. That's what pretty much keeps them alive. Cacao, they call it. A few peanuts, and this necklace of nuts.
Now, interesting I said what they sent me in with. I found that was quite an often scenario for me. If I went in and trained from an indigenous culture, and then they were dropping me off somewhere, they invariably really wanted to help me, like to give me something, like you're going to need this to survive kind of thing. Often they didn't quite grasp what it was I was doing, that I wanted to have nothing and that I was filming it and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not trying to paint them as ignorant, it's just that it's a vastly different cultural experience going on there. I remember, well, in the Arctic they gave me whale blubber, for example. And so here I thought, okay, they were insisting, and you get to that point where you also don't want to insult them. So getting a little bit from their garden to come out with that is traditional and grown in the area, I thought, that'll work.
Oh, and last but not least, some jungle bananas. So enough food easily to keep me going for a day, day and a half, 2 days. As for the fire starting, well, I'll go grab some tinder and give it a shot before it starts raining.
Before it starts raining, that's just wishful thinking in the jungle.
Okay, that's just not fair. This is not going to be easy. I have one last-ditch effort I can try to get a fire going if I can't do it the Haywa way.
This time, I came prepared, since it's so wet here.
Here we go. Some vine, my only piece.
So this was a situation where I was taught a completely new way to do fire starting days before this. And I said, you know, I'm not going to practice this. This will be like, I've seen it done, okay. Now, how will it be if I just try it on my own? And I've said this to you guys before, I've always liked doing that because then you see me doing something very real, not practiced and staged, but very real. It's like, oh man, and he didn't get it going, or whatever happens in a particular episode. And then if I do have a success, then you know my euphoria is very palpable.
This would be the worst time to try and get a fire going. Not so good. All right, let's try this again. Come on, baby. Don't break on me this time. Well, that's too bad. I did this in practice. I was able to get it going.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so I guess I did get it going once before in practice. So never mind. Forget everything I just said. No, I guess I obviously tried it and got it going, but I know I didn't spend the week working on it. And then you get this reality. It's like snap, snap. That's one of the worst feelings when you're doing fire starting. It's like with your fire bow and the string breaks. It's like, oh, because it always breaks right in a key moment, you know, or you're doing a hand drill and maybe the base breaks or something like that. Anytime something breaks while you're trying to do fire by friction, it's demoralizing.
But the vine they sent me out with just keeps breaking. Too old. I got smoke, and then it broke. And that's not enough. It's starting to pour here, and I'm gonna have to switch to my last-ditch method and see if I can maybe get the fire going. Bummer. That's filled with a million ants. I have started fires by hitting rock and steel together, by spinning a piece of wood with my hand, using a fire bow, gasoline and a spark, batteries, flashlight, the sun. I even started fire using chocolate in a can. And I have gotten fire using this vine method out here, just not today, because all I have left to get a fire going now is a butane lighter. Wish me luck.
Now, clearly, I was being sarcastic. Can't tell you how often, I'll be sarcastic. Well, because I'm a sarcastic dude, and a smart ass. And when I have been a smart ass and a sarcastic dude various times, especially on social media, and people just, they don't get it. And like, seriously, you thought I actually meant that? Yeah, you have to let it go.
Woo! Wow, that was close. Of course, getting a fire going and keeping a fire going are two different matters altogether. So what are my issues here? Well, there are 4 different kinds of malaria in this jungle.
Oh, not 6, 4. I stand corrected by this dude.
One of them is quite deadly and can kill you. The other 3 just make you pretty sick. And the very deadly taipan. Now, the taipan is about the only snake on the planet that really gives the black mamba a run for its money in terms of aggressiveness and poison. That's the bad news. The good news is I'm probably too high up in elevation for the taipan to be up here. But that's not to say one can't wander up from the river anyway. And as for spiders, there are poisonous spiders here, and there are spiders bigger than my hand. And they come out at night. But hopefully they'll leave me alone. This is definitely going to be a long week.
Ironically enough, as it is in most places, it's not the big spiders that are a problem. They're just creepy, and not usually poisonous. It tends to be the small parasites in the New Guinea jungle that can cause the real problems.
At night, there's flying foxes, they call them. Big bats, basically. They hopefully should leave me alone. The nightly rains in the jungle.
Gotta say, over all the years and all the times I've slept on grounds and shoved my hands into holes and pulled down trees and cut open stumps, that I've been so incredibly and insanely lucky. I mean, a friend of mine, Devin Masson, amazing filmmaker, was doing some stuff in the Amazon jungle, and a bullet ant fell down into his shirt, bit and stung him. Right? That could have happened to me thousands of times over. I never did. And I think, same reason why I didn't snap an ankle and break a leg and all that sort of stuff. Other than a couple of cuts with a knife, I haven't really had those issues. But it comes down to doing proper survival, moving slowly, acting methodically, and making sure of everything, whether it's clearing out an area before I go to sleep on it, moving stuff around before I sit down, stuff like that, banging things to make sure snakes move away. That's all. That's all there really was to it for me. But think of how many years now, going on 30 years, 25 to 30 years of sleeping on the ground, and almost nothing. A couple of minor spider bites that I didn't hardly even notice. Maybe that's about it. I'm a lucky dude.
Well, it's like a regular banana. I'm not going to say it's delicious, but it'll do. Damn it. I got a drip. I hear you. Thunder. Mosquitoes. Rain. Very little fire. Well, the cooked banana was good. I don't know how it's managing to do it, but I've still got my fire going. It's just smoldering underneath all the damp wood. But it's still going. And it's still raining.
I remember really struggling, though, to keep that fire going. It was never much more than a smolder. In fact, a lot of times in jungle civilizations, if you will, jungle indigenous cultures, their fires were kept in a low smolder going all the time when they were cooking things and so on. I don't recall them very often having big flaming fires. We do that in North America as part of a camping culture and so on. But theirs were almost always just smoldering circles of embers.
It's going to rain a long time, I think. The thing about trying to sleep in a survival situation in kind of a crunched up position like this is you don't really sleep.
The greatest danger of all during the night is my own mind. But years of doing this have given me the confidence to just close my eyes and wait for morning light.
A little trick that I've taught to kids a lot of times about how to not be afraid of the dark when you're in the forest and you want to get some sleep. Right before, and I have taught this before, and maybe even in director's commentary, but right before it starts to get dark, take real detailed notice of everything around where you are and where you're going to be sleeping. Then, once it's dark, just remind yourself that everything is still there. It's exactly the same as it was. That big tree's over there, that rock is over there, the lake is over there. It's exactly the same as it was. Our minds tend to think, oh, it all changes in the dark, but it doesn't change at all, of course. It's exactly the same. And nothing's going on. Nothing. And well, what about the nocturnal creatures? They don't want anything to do with you anyway. So that is a way just to remind yourself and calm yourself down and bring down the anxiety of being in the middle of the forest in the dark. Remember that it's no different than it was at 2 p.m. Same rocks, same trees, same everything.
One of my staff members cut a deal with me. They said they'll throw in some survival items in my top pouch if I promise not to open it before day 2. Well, it's day 2, so let's see what I got.
This was just a nice little thing that I was going to do was exactly that, was say, man, I'm always the one, thinking about the different things and the different scenarios, so why don't you guys just put something together and let me see what you give me, and I'll just play off of that when I get out there, sort of thing.
Some rope. Nice. Oh, sweet. Orange garbage bag. A can full of survival. All right. Oh. How about that? The top just broke off. Now imagine if I was down and out and hurt and trying to open that up. But without a can opener, I would have been in trouble. A little mini sort of stove holder. I'll bet you the can will fit right on top of this. Candy. I'll take one of those right now. That's good. Looks like chicken and beef bouillon and just some tin foil.
So you guys have heard me say this before. So many of, if not all of, the ready-to-go survival kits you take off the shelf are just bogus. They're crap. You want to make your own survival kit. And of course, even after all these years and stuff that my people around me would learn by working with me, say Laura the photographer, Max Atwood the cameraman, Barry the editor, they still never really knew survival like I did. So they would assume like, oh, well, I'm going to give you this kit. Les, here you go. This, I think Barry Clark actually gave me this. I can't remember. And to see how I do with it, and thinking that there's great advantages, but most of the time this stuff is nonsense. And so you see in a situation like that, you got this ready-to-go survival kit, and the lid breaks off. Yeah, that's some pretty bad designing right there.
All right, here's my survival in a can. Let's see how it can help me while I'm out here in the jungle. What's this? Instructions on how to survive. Excellent. I was hoping to get a lot more, but it's starting to rain again. No way of knowing what kind of spiders and bugs might be on these leaves.
Every chance I get, I have to build up my shelter. Each day, I can make it better, stronger, and as a result, it'll be more able to protect me from the jungle elements.
Always racing the rain. I always put an orange garbage bag in my survival kit. Number one, it's great for signaling, raincoats, catching water, and in this situation, for a waterproof roof. Can you tell how slow I'm moving with everything? Foolish thing to do, actually, to move fast when you're in a survival situation, unless you're trying to run away from something.
Undoubtedly, that was probably a reference of mine to some of those other survival shows that came along and was all about the sensationalized running and jumping through the jungle kind of stuff. And maybe this is a good place to tell you why I assumed this was going to be my last Survivorman ever. This was, and you've heard me say this in other times, and I suppose eventually I will do a video for you where I do a breakdown on all of the other survival shows series, Man vs. Wild, Dual Survival, Alone, Naked and Afraid. And this was a period of time where you know, the network was still in love with me. They were still, you know, and it was still a good relationship that way. They still wanted lots more material from me. But now we'd gotten into that phase where they'd come out with Man vs. Wild, which that was, you know, that was the biggest rub at the time. But then also, I remembered while showing the director's commentary for the Temagami hunting episode where I went out with Bushman Bob, which you can see. Go down to the director's commentaries playlists and find that one if you haven't seen it. And I remember doing that one, that I did that show to show, if you will, that I can show survival also with two people. And I talked with them about doing some offshoot series where I would have more than just myself, but have two people. And I remember they were being very quirky and weird about it. Like, well, you know, Les, they were like, you know, sort of like the fake, the phony compliments. Like, you know, you're really the best at just being alone out there. And I mean, you're the real deal. And by this time, they'd learned that Bear wasn't actually doing it for real. And so they were dissuading me. So I always thought it was kind of weird. And then they came out with Dual Survival. And I was like, I get it now. Because, see, they would own that show 100%, whereas they didn't own anything that I did. So at this point, I had done quite a few episodes, obviously 3 seasons worth, and I was kind of done, you know, and I wanted to do something else. So I was, at this point, and I think we'll see this at the end of this episode, I kind of do like a big wrap-up, like that's it, what's next? And I think I say we're going to go Beyond Survival. And Beyond Survival was to be the next series. And I wanted to come back, and I wanted to take part in the ceremonies with the Heiwa, which I ended up doing, as you'll see later. So that's what was going on. That's why I thought, you know, I'm kind of done here. They're going to do that. They're going to do all these other shows. Oh, and now the other networks are jumping on the bandwagon too. That for me was the moment, and the message for me was to say, okay, this is my time then to back away. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Never have, never do. I hate that. So I'm backing away. I'm dealing with it right now with Wild Harvest. We came out with Wild Harvest and doing really well with it. And then about the same timing, about 18 months or so after, now there's more shows coming out that are very similar to Wild Harvest. So I like to be at the zeitgeist if I can. Not always. I wasn't there. I wasn't the first one to do a Bigfoot series. That wasn't a new thing. I thought I did a really good one, but I wasn't the first. But in this case, of course I was. And so if everybody else is going to do the same thing I'm doing, I'm out. And that's what was behind. I wasn't in a bad mood. I was just looking to do something different and new that nobody else had done. And that's when this led to Beyond Survival.
Survivorman is everything that, you know, stories should have, and but in the most difficult way possible. You can't write that, you can't act that, you have to live it. You have to let it be, and you have to shape it in a way that's true and entertaining at the same time. And like, there's no, you can't wrap up the show or the series in a way with just one word. Oh, it was about survival, because it was way more than that. It was way more than the locations. It was way more than all of us. It had its own life. I mean, the other shows that spin off it, well, there's like, you know, you take it as a compliment, at least I do. It's like, oh, okay, well, that was a nice try, and, you know, you made a lot of money, but you didn't accomplish really anything. You know, you can break those shows down into 1 or 2 words sometimes, if not at the most a sentence. Naked and Afraid, well, people liked the naked. That's why they watched it. Bear Grylls, he was a stuntman. That's why they watched that. Like all the shows that have, you can sort of distill them very easily into one thing that Survivorman was. Yet Survivorman was many, many, many layers of filmmaking.
There we go. Amazing what you can do with a garbage bag.
It's day 2.
Highly recommend those big orange garbage bags in your survival kit. And if you want to see a breakdown on survival kits, I've got a video on this YouTube channel. If you look down, I think in the how-to section probably, or just, you know, use the search field for survival kit, Survivorman survival kit or whatever, and you will see I do a full breakdown. But I will always say that a nice big orange, so it can be seen, garbage bag is a great and very useful thing in a survival kit. It's light, easy to transport, and easy to see.
Living in the jungles of New Guinea.
Looks like a good place to have a bath. Keeping clean in the jungle is not an option. It's a necessity. Fungus can develop rapidly out here and be all over your body. Finally.
One of the little nuances of survival, keeping clean. I remember a friend of mine, a redneck guy up in Northern Ontario, said, I don't believe Les is doing it. Look at he's too clean. And it's like, well, no, you're filthy. And I understand the value of, in a survival situation, it's not machismo to be filthy. It's unhygienic and you can cause a lot of other problems. So staying clean in a survival situation is vital and important. You want to practice really good hygiene if you're out in the middle of the forest. Well, maybe it's just an extended adventure. Being filthy and sweaty and smelly and funky is not good. It's not healthy. You can survive better if you're cleaner.
Some jungle wilds that I can eat that are just here. This is wild taro. And the leaves are full of a very fibrous silicates. They'll have to be cooked. It's the only way I can eat these. It just would hurt the mouth too much to eat them raw. There's not much to eat here in the jungle that's just growing wild and natural, but there is some.
There's a midday glass of wine. This is some leftover from last night when I was watching, again, The Dark Knight. But now I find that I fast forward to all the sections with Heath Ledger and just watch those ones. Anyway, midday cheers, guys.
This whole area up in here is being turned into a tiny jungle farm. Likely by just one person, maybe two. One machete, maybe an axe.
Oh. Huh. Well, you guys are still recording, but my power just went out. Uh-oh. I gotta go into survival mode. What do I do? Is everything still... Yeah, all the cameras are still recording. Okay. That's fine. You know what? Here. Luke, while I get this up and running again, either show them my stuff or show them who's sponsoring this video. Your call. Actually, no, it's not your call, Luke. Show them who's sponsoring this video. Here's something you didn't know. On every Survivorman episode that I ever shot, I wore contact lenses. So think about that for a second. I got to get up in the morning, sleeping in some shelter or on some rock. Maybe it's blizzarding and blowing, it's freezing cold. Maybe I'm in the jungle, sleeping in the mud. Maybe I'm in the desert and it's sandy everywhere. And I have to get up every morning and put in my contact lenses. Yeah, imagine that. If only I'd known about delivercontacts.com, because they would have brought me fresh, clean contacts every morning. Free delivery, the lowest rates, and the top brands. Here's a story. I'm about to shoot an episode for Shark Week. I'm going to jump into the ocean. There's a crew down there. They're going to film me come in. All right, splash. I go down in. I look and I notice my contact lens is floating around in my mask. There's 3-foot swells. I have to go back up, hold on to the end of the boat. It's going up and down, push my mask off. There's my lens floating around in the salt water. I have to take my hand, one finger, trying to get it, put it into my eye, with the ocean water splashing me at the same time, get the mask back up, and back down I go to film the show. Delivercontacts.com would have been there for me in a heartbeat. They would have swam across the ocean in all likelihood and brought me a fresh lens. So I'm so very honored that Delivercontacts.com is sponsoring this very video you're watching right now. And away we go.
Up in here is being turned into a tiny jungle farm. Likely by just one person, maybe two. One machete, maybe an axe. And as steep as it is, that's where they've got to eke out their existence. They can't just go around this forest gathering because there's just not much here to gather. For the Hewa, survival in the Papua New Guinea jungle is tough. This jungle is unique. It's quite probably more primitive than most, really. See, there's no placental mammals here, no primates. Seed dispersal is left to a handful of marsupials and birds. And that's why so much of the fruit is 200 feet up in the air and not accessible to a human being. Makes survival here very tough. The Hewa have come into this jungle, but they've had to bring with them the concept of farming, because without it, there's just not enough to gather here. There's not enough to hunt. You're reduced to kind of groveling, which is sort of what I'm doing, I guess. I'm getting lightheaded. Of course, that could be because I'm taking malaria pills without any food in my stomach. That can't be good for me. No energy. I've gathered what I could from the surrounding jungle here. And it was a good supply of dry stuff hanging. If you look far and wide, you can find it even in a place that gets 6-7 hours of rain every single day. Make a bit of a funnel of fire here. But first I'll change the tape.
The duty of filming all of this while surviving calls a game.
Once I get a fire big enough like this, I can use punky wood and burn it as well. You just gotta have that main base. Just gotta be careful it doesn't go too hot, too high, because I'll burn my roof.
Found out over the years that punky wood is a Canadianism. That's what we call rotted wood. You know, you can actually get it to burn in a smoldering kind of way, even in a fireplace or on the open campfire. But that's what I mean when I say punky wood. I kind of mean just rotted wood.
It's ironic that I'm in probably one of the most primitive jungles that I've ever been in.
I don't know why I keep saying primitive jungles. So Bill must have taught me something at the time. But I thought, and so maybe someone who really understands Papua New Guinea and its natural history can answer this down in post, but my understanding is that it's a newer jungle, and that's why there's no placental mammals, no apes, nothing like that, just the birds and the marsupials. So that was my understanding. But I don't know. Somebody answer that.
Surviving, and yet here I am eating roasted peanuts, probably one of the more bits of civilized food I've ever had while on a survival ordeal. So, what do I got to eat here?
Surrounded by all this greenery and nothing to eat. So what they ended up insisting I take in with me was a godsend to have any energy while filming this episode.
Some of those nuts roasted up. Oh, that's good. And this is that sweet potato. Oh, very good. Whew, hot. We'll see how the new shelter and the new fire hold up. Just cooking up this wild taro leaf. You've got to cook it up to break up the silicates in the leaves, and then it's edible. Not bad.
Outside of the jungle canopy, it can be light for a long time, but underneath it, where I am, darkness prevails.
And taro is actually farmed as a crop.
Well, this might be the first night ever in a jungle without rain. Uh-oh, maybe I spoke too soon. It might even be a decent night. I just have to see if I can get some sleep without any big old hand-sized spiders crawling on it.
In the jungle.
Right there, that's a cockroach crawling on my head. Totally didn't know that was going on when I was filming this.
You just have to give in to the fact that things will crawl on you at night. Some of them are poisonous, and some are not.
Those are wild pigs. Grab my machete. There they are.
I was given permission that if there were any wild pigs that came around, these are obviously pigs that were brought in, they've gone feral, that I was quite welcome to hunt them anytime I wanted. So I was hoping that that was going to happen in this.
Walked right through my camp. Now that would have been a meal. I know I've seen their tracks around here, but I figured it was a real long shot as to whether or not I could actually catch one. Now that I know that they're here. I'll set out a trap tomorrow. Maybe a quick kill trap.
I do remember that night, I think I might mention it in the show here, I'm not sure, but in case I don't, insane dreams, just insane dreams. I had one particular dream where I dreamt I was back home with my kids, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and my son was running and jumping up into my arms, and my dog was there, and my daughter, and I woke up, and it was bucketing down rain. I was in the middle of this jungle, the cockroaches crawling all around. I was getting wet from the splatter of the mud, and I sunk not into a depression, but I definitely woke up with that, oh my God, I'm still here. I remember that. It was probably the worst night ever for something like that, for an emotional experience brought on by a dream where I thought I wasn't there anymore, and I wake up to where I did not want to be. What was the most challenging part of filming for me and being in those scenarios? What was the most challenging part of that?
It's honestly just filming and being in the elements like 24/7. I think that's the hardest thing. I think like making sure that you're prepared like for surviving in the elements, you know, so that you can shoot and get up and shoot at all times, hours of the day. So I think that was the hardest thing. And having to film, like, I think on other shoots, like if you have a bad weather day, like I've been on other, so I've shot a lot of other shows since Survivorman. If we have a bad weather day, we just don't shoot. You know, but on Survivorman, it was like, well, we have 7 days to shoot. I have 7 days to shoot all this stuff. It doesn't really matter if it's like 60-mile-an-hour winds for 3 days in a row. I have to go out there and try to get footage. If it's pouring rain all day long, I have to like gear up the cameras and film in that weather all day long. I mean, I think that was the hardest thing about those shoots. It's a grind, you know.
Another place that happened, by the way, well, I'll tell this story when I get to it, the Grenada Island episode, really weird, almost metaphysical experience overnight when I was on that island. But I'll leave that as a tease. Tell you about it when we do that one.
Catching a wild pig is no easy feat. They're strong and aggressive creatures. A light snare's not going to do the job. I need something that's more decisive. A quick kill, fast trigger, spear.
Now the tricky part. Setting this thing without stabbing myself.
Now, I could have done a lot more when it comes to quick kill traps and various traps in all the different survival situations. And you've seen other shows do it, but the truth is they're setting those things up. They're staging them, and they're even staging the animals that they're getting. They're faking it because the reality is it's very difficult. It takes a long time. Like, you've got to be working on stuff like this and be in a place for months to know how to set something like that up in the right place, the right time. And I did absolutely love building and constructing traps while training and learning in primitive earth skills and bushcraft, because there's always that, and I could go on a long kind of rant on this, the difference between survival skills, bushcrafting skills, primitive earth technology or primitive skills. Those are three separate categories of the skills that you can utilize when you're out in nature, when you're out in the wilderness. And the sexy ones are the primitive earth skills and the bushcrafting skills, but those sexy skills, they don't always work for real in a real survival situation. But just nonetheless, I was going to try my hand at one of the quick kill traps that I knew about. But did I really think this was going to take down a pig? Well, I hope so, but I wasn't confident.
Let me show you how this thing works. This is the path that the pig has been walking along, okay? He's gonna run into that string. When that happens, this releases, and this is the spot here that's holding the spear back. This releases, and then this whole spear will just shoot. And hopefully, if I'm lucky, it'll stab right into the heart of a pig, and I'll be cooking up bacon. Look at this mess. This is what I've got to walk in. Which is basically all pig slop. A bonus would be a nice, big, fat, juicy boa constrictor. Be tasty. Easy to catch, not poisonous, full of meat. Not much of a haul for a day's hike, but at least I found these guys. Now, this leaf here, I don't actually have to cook to eat. I can just peel away the leaf part and just eat the stem. Well, it's not much. And it's kind of old and woody, but it's quite literally better than nothing.
I'm not going to stop at just one trap. There are rats in the jungle too, and they can make a good meal.
That's step one. Now, the big question, do I make it rat-sized or pig-sized?
I think that's what's not realized by a lot of people is just how many domesticated and then gone feral animals there are in all of the forests all around the world. Just ask the people of Hawaii about invasive species. It's rampant throughout the entire planet. There's no, perfectly pristine natural area anywhere on the globe anymore, except I suppose maybe Antarctic.
Rat comes in here, goes for the bait, takes that snare. With any luck at all, he pulls on the noose, up goes the snare, and he's hanging there waiting for me to come and have breakfast.
In the jungle, there's no warning. The rain is just there.
I remember this was an episode where I actually came there thinking, I hope I can do a lot more traps, because I haven't done many traps recently. And that's some of the ways I would do the Survivorman series too, is I might go for a few shows thinking, oh man, I haven't done a primitive fire starting method in a while, I want to do that. Or I haven't done a trapping or a snaring method in a while, I want to do that. Or I haven't done a certain kind of shelter. And so I tried to space out the different skills I was teaching and showing throughout the series, every so many episodes. And this is one where I do remember thinking, oh, I'd love to do a lot more traps. And when I got there, said, well, yeah, you can snare rabbit, you can go after pigs. Okay, great. That's what I'm going to play with.
And it locks me into my little green leaf prison.
I've had a lot of rain, but this is the first one with a lot of thunder. So let's hope I don't get too many lightning strikes close by. Pretty big trees in mine here. A few, I guess. Well, rain or no rain, maybe I can get some sleep.
Once again, I can tell that I probably don't have a backup photographer. I think that the reason in this case would have been it was so expensive to get there. We'll see in the credits, but I'm kind of looking at the B-roll that's available, and I'm seeing mostly just my camera work.
Sleep is vital to survival. Without it, you can get very depressed. But there would be no rest for me this night. The pathogens of the jungle have returned to wreak havoc on my system, and as they say in the military, troops march on their stomachs. In fact, constant stomach upset is how prisoners of war were kept from planning escapes. In survival, it's not the big scary creatures that get you, it's the tiny unseen biological world of parasites and disease.
All right, so here's the deal. In the middle of the night, I got hit with pick water, which is the Hewa language for severe diarrhea. Middle of the night last night, again this morning, and very weak, very shaky.
That's what I mean, like seeing these these shows again with you, totally forgot about that completely. And you can see too, like in this episode now, I have the relatively new tattoo. That was a tattoo I got before the big wave of everybody getting tattooed, with 2 wolves, one from my son, one from my daughter. But I do not have the stick and nail tattoos that I was going to get later when I was in Indonesia with a shaman. So there's this whole, timestamp to all these different episodes for me rewatching them with you. And in this case, I forgot that I got really sick while I was out there.
I'm gonna head downstream and get out from under this jungle canopy. Diarrhea in the jungle. That's pretty severe. I thought so. Middle of the night last night, the pig trap went off. And you can see his tracks and everything, but no pig.
And so why didn't I go out when I heard the trap and everything? Because it was bucketing down rain. And, it's middle of the night, and you're like, all groggy and everything. And so that's why.
I'll go up and check my rat trap. Maybe that will cure my diarrhea, some freshly cooked rat. It's amazing how weak a bout of diarrhea will make you. When you don't have much food in your stomach to begin with. And I just keep re-ingesting this jungle water now. The thing is, dehydration would have killed me a long time ago. If I'd gone 3 days without drinking at all, I would have been serious trouble from dehydration because I'm sweating profusely all the time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an overstatement. It would not have killed me a long time ago. But what does actually happen, more than anything else, it's the debilitation you feel when you're dehydrated. So yes, technically speaking, people have gone as long as 10 days without water. It's how are you functioning after 48 hours without water? Not well. That's the reality of being dehydrated. It knocks you down. And of course, if you're in the jungle or the desert and not only are you not taking water in, but you're losing water all the time, or because you're working hard, then it is deadly. Maybe not to the point of killing you dead yet, but it's definitely stopping you from being effective in your survival.
I would have gotten to that point where I wasn't sweating at all. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So I've been drinking. And now my bowels are paying for it. Just coming up to the rat trap here. We got any action? Nothing. It's just sitting there. Bummer. No action on the rat trap, and pig trap was busted up.
To be honest, I'm getting claustrophobic. There's little food here, and I'm constantly in a state of being soaking wet, in the mud, 24 hours a day. My feet are already developing a fungus that can become quite painful. My mind is aching for some open air and a vista. Along with bouts of diarrhea, I'm vomiting as well. Existence in the jungle is a dark, closed-in experience that can play on the psyche in horrible ways. Nightmares are dogging me constantly in here. Often I dream of being somewhere else, someplace pleasant. But when I wake up, my heart drops. So I realize I'm still in the jungle, sleeping in the mud.
So I did talk about it, see? Very true, though. That's the thing that's not mentioned very often in survival situations. Your dreamscapes become just so vivid and so wild. On all of the Survivorman episodes I ever shot, I had amazingly insane dreams, crazy stuff. And that's part and parcel of being without food. I mean, if you want to dream crazy dreams, fast for a couple of days and see what happens. Do it out in a jungle or the desert or way out in the open, even more so, all that fresh air. And I'm not sure if that's something that I would even say I didn't enjoy. It's probably something I actually enjoyed as part of this.
Finally. All right, a big river and an opening. Oh yeah, now that is nice. Look at that opening.
Also, which can't be understated, is the claustrophobic feeling when you're in a jungle. In a survival situation, being able to have wonderful aesthetics around you aids your survival. So if you're in a pretty, picturesque, beautiful location, that's actually easier to survive in than a closed-in, claustrophobic atmosphere or a rugged and just a rugged and dirty place. Beauty makes you feel better. So I often would try to get to a place where, quite frankly, where it might feel more like a parkland. You see something that looks a little bit like a natural parkland, it's going to make you feel better.
This looks like home to me. Boy, as soon as I hit that sunshine, though, the sweat just starts pouring. There's a good fresh stream coming out just up there. I can avoid drinking the water from this river. Everything that's bad flows into this river, so the cleaner water is the smaller streams, actually. I gotta cool down. Now maybe tomorrow I can make my way across this river if there's a shallow spot somewhere. Wouldn't trust going across here right now. Now you can see over here, there's a farm over there. It's an active farm too, so there might be vegetables there that I can, well, steal. The only problem with taking vegetables here, if you have permission, well, that's one thing. If you don't have permission, you could find yourself decapitated. That's not a good thing.
It's not that the Hewa will just attack you outright, but if you steal, you're taking away their very survival.
No doubt the river will flood from time to time, so I can see it by all the washout where I am right now. I'm gonna go up in here. There's a flat space, and tuck in here and just make myself a little quickie shelter. Help me get through the night. This is not going to be anything fancy, just something quick to keep me out of the rain.
Now, if memory served, I think at some point I did see somebody over on the other side there, just a woman, an older woman from the Hewa tribe, just, working her garden a bit. If memory serves, I think I did see somebody over there. And I was hoping that the water, because it can sometimes slow down quite a bit, would come down so that I could actually cross the river. That's not what happens, though. By the way, the commentary about finding yourself decapitated, that was not being overly dramatic. You have to be really careful in these remote areas with peoples who are not used to any outsiders whatsoever, and you just show up and start eating their food. That's a big no-no. So that was not overly dramatic speaking. You got to be very careful. Later on in Beyond Survival, we had a whole half of a town come kind of after us in a way with machetes in hands, and when they have mini wars and things up in the jungle, they're fighting with machetes. So you got to be careful.
Now the beauty of what I'm doing here is this greenery that I'm working with is really easy to work with, and I've got probably a rain-tight shelter here. It's amazing what you can do with a bit of nylon rope and a machete. Well, it's time finally to put that little survival stove to the test. The first thing I'll try is they've got this little package of survival beef bouillon.
And the only reason I hadn't done it before this was because it was just pouring rain all the time, and I was busy trying to film the traps that I was setting up and the snares. And so sometimes it really just comes down to I just didn't have enough time.
This little survival stove is great in a pinch. The small white chemical tablets are fuel, just enough to boil water and get me something hot to drink. Two things sorely missed in a survival situation: something nice and cold, and something nice and hot. And when you're...
And that's something that I could have done more of, and I would do more of in the future. and that is to go out and in a survival situation, but to utilize a fully stocked survival kit to show what it's like. I kind of bumped up against that a couple of times on a few episodes, but I never really fully explored saying, well, what if you could do a whole series of just walking into a Cabela's or a Bass Pro or a Walmart or a Canadian Tire and just grabbing a kit and saying, okay, this is my kit, sight unseen, now I'm going to go out into the woods and survive. And that's something that I may actually do in the future, and say, okay, let's see how, and really put this to the test. And I think it'd be pretty disappointing when you, or the kits would show themselves to be pretty disappointing when you get right down to it.
Forced to live in a state that seems less than human, anything that makes you feel more human is a bonus and can lift your spirits high.
There we go. Definitely enough to probably kill most, if not all, parasites that are in it. Let's see what some of this survival beef bouillon is like.
Though it's best to boil water for 10 minutes, a lot of experts agree that even just bringing it to the point of boiling can be enough to kill any pathogens.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of flavor. Oh, man, that's good. Still got another treat left to enjoy today that the Haywa sent me in with, called beetle nut. It's a bit of a process. Let me show you how it works. There's the beetle nut.
Now, we'll let this scene roll. I've probably seen more comments about this scene than almost any other one that I've done. And the reason why I wanted to include it was because they do kind of chew it for survival. But it destroys their mouths completely. I thought, well, you know, it's a little bit of a pinprick into the world of the indigenous cultures and how they survive out there, which was going to lead to my next series. And I think that's probably why I did this. I thought this is going to be a bit of a tease, almost like a bridge into filming the series Beyond Survival. Let's just watch.
Now, not sure how to describe what it does. It takes away your appetite, so it suppresses your appetite. All of the Haywa chew it incessantly. It's kind of like chewing tobacco for them, I think. Makes your face go numb. There's one. Oh. Oh, how do they do that? That's bitter. Oh. Two. And they take this baggie of lye. Then take a leaf. Oh my God. Oh. And you're chewing all of this. You can not throw up in the process. Come on. Oh. That's gross. Like ammonia feeling. What a... Oh.
I know that stance of mine. That's me trying not to vomit right now, I can tell.
It's not as powerful as a cocaine or an opium, but I'll tell you how I feel in an hour. How about help me get through the night? Oh, it's brutal. Oh. This is why. Oh. Oh. This is why I don't do tobacco either.
Yep. My face feels numb. Okay then.
The effects of the beetle nut are more than I'm expecting, and they go a little beyond just a numb face.
Oh boy.
Which is true in the sense of like if you smoke tobacco, but you're not a cigarette smoker. But in this case, a little bit beyond that. You just go into your head and you get a bit loopy sort of thing. For them, probably none of that happens. They're just so used to it. It's just like a chewing tobacco for them in a way. But when you're new to it, it's you got to hold on a little bit for the ride. That's me trying not to hurl.
For the Hewa, chewing on beetle nut all day long is an addiction. It numbs their faces, ruins their teeth, suppresses their appetite, but as well, it gets them high.
So oh. Ah, see, battery's gone. Hang on. I'm back.
The high the Hewa people get from chewing beetle nut lasts for them up to an hour and a half.
So you know that little act of blowing harmonica on Survivorman. Originally, I started it, and I've told you this story before, because I wanted you to say, "Hey, man, I'm not a one-trick pony. I've got other things that I do in life. One of them is I'm a musician." And yet, doing it, it actually got me in positions where I was able to find myself doing charity concerts, you know, and I'd be on stage with Alice Cooper or Johnny Lang, you know, or Journey, and absolutely amazing to be in that position, all because I blew a little bit of a harmonica on my Survivorman series. So it was a good thing to do.
Definitely more closed in than I would like it to be, but if it does rain, I'll be fine. Okay. Well, it's not raining yet. With any luck at all, it won't rain through the whole night. At all. The only problem I have with this shelter now is that it's calling with ants. And they may be small, but they do bite. Sometimes ants are nocturnal, sometimes they're during the day. Hopefully these ones will mellow out now that it's getting good and dark.
Tonight, it's not the ants that I have to worry about.
This was a complete surprise. I had not expected the river to rise, and I'm, you know, a number of feet, I don't know, 10, 15 feet away from the, maybe 20 feet away from the shore's edge, maybe more, actually, now that I think of it, and had not expected this at all. Wasn't ready for it. The river's just raging right now. It's up about 2-3 feet, and I'm only another 2-3 feet higher. In fact, I was gonna make a camp right down here. Hopefully it won't come up anymore. Man, it's moving. That's the thing about...
In the rivers of the Amazon, did I underestimate how fast a river can rise? This time, the river may be wide, but the amount of water pushing through the valley is unbelievable, and actually predictable on a nightly basis. I'm just not familiar enough with this area.
All right, I found that out later, and that's something people who are used to particular remote areas. You are used to the nuances of the weather and the rivers and where there are going to be mudslides and so on and so forth. But when you're in a situation and you're in wilderness survival and you're new to the area, you don't know any of this stuff, and so these little normal occurrences are complete and absolute surprises to you. And I had no idea that this river rose so much every single night. I'm assuming because of rains further upstream.
Water rose up to here last night, another 2 or 3 feet, and it would have been right up at my shelter. It's still pretty high this morning, so there's not much point in me trying to attempt to cross now. I'll have to wait till it recedes a bit more.
The Haywa can cross this river in bare feet with babies on their backs. Quite a big difference between a life lived in the jungle and being a visitor like myself.
Just what I was afraid of. His feet have been locked up inside of wet, muddy boots all week, and I've developed a rash and fungus on both of them.
If I remember correctly, I don't think I took my boots off once that whole period of time until just now. Stupid and dangerous thing to do.
That's not good news. And on top of that, the diarrhea returned last night. So it's really beating me up out here. But now that I'm not using the orange tarp for my shelter, I can continue to catch rain, start to flush through some fresh rainwater, and hopefully that will clean me up, although that won't kill any parasites that might be in my stomach already.
Hence, knowing how to utilize a primitive skill, such as making a shelter that can be watertight, versus relying on modern technology such as a plastic garbage bag. If I can know the primitive earth skills and the bushcrafting skills and use them for survival, I can then take the modern technology of a plastic orange garbage bag and use that for another purpose, and in this case, get fresh, clean drinking water. So that's why the having a lot of tools in your toolkit to pick from in a survival situation is highly advantageous.
Just as I was considering how I would cross the river to steal some food from the jungle garden, 2 Haywa men approached from the distance. They had machetes in their hands, and they seemed to have an agenda.
Hello! Okay. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good.
So, Mr. Bill,
Yeah?
do you want to stay here or come to station?
So what he said was, Mr. Bill said, Mr. Bill is Bill Thomas, the anthropologist, he's saying, do you want to stay out here or come back for the Sing Sing, which is a celebration? And in this case, it was being put on for my honor. So this guy right here, standing there with the machete, talking to me, I actually ended up giving him the boots that I'm wearing. He asked if he could have them. As you can see, he doesn't need them. So I gave them to him, and he put them on and didn't even tie them up and walked around. He absolutely loved them. I thought it was kind of weird because they were kind of ruined. But anyway, turns out that they were coming with a smart-ass move in mind, waving their machetes, sort of thing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were coming to invite me to a celebration in my honor for being there in the jungle and surviving. But they thought, oh, we'll scare them a little bit on the way.
It was a powerful experience. You're really getting a window into life of these tribes that are surviving in the middle of nowhere. I think there are rites of passage, rituals, and ceremonies that are probably misunderstood by a lot of people. They're saying, oh, well, you're going to be traveling with a tribe and they're not safe and there's cannibalism. And, we get in there and we're learning more things about their ceremonies and the fact that they're digging up remains for a ceremony and, maybe they're getting bacteria on their hands and that's causing a brain disease. And, it's, you're exploring and learning on the fly with tribes that I think lots of people don't understand, unless you're really in there in the depths of the jungle.
Something are there.
A big Sing Sing tonight.
So
Okay.
he go and tell us to go and ask you.
Yep. Uh-huh.
He go and
Thank you.
Go and ask you, do you want to stay or do you want to come to the station? You come ask you, go
Yeah.
and stay.
Well, there you have it. I'm talking to camera. My choice was stay, keep suffering from diarrhea in the middle of the jungle with hardly any food to speak of. But what's happened here is the villagers have come back and they've come out here to see me to tell me that there's a sing-sing tonight in my honor. Celebration of me being here. So my choice was to stay in the jungle and suffer, or come out to the sing-sing. Very difficult decision to make. Very difficult.
Yes, I was being sarcastic. Of course, I'm going to come out to the celebration. Are you crazy?
"23 times I've gone out."
Here we go. So this was meant to be my official sign-off from the Survivorman series. I started off saying 23 times I've survived out in the such and such. So it was going to be a long way from my finish, as it turned out. As life carried on, I did many, many more. But I thought that I was done. And again, as I alluded to earlier, I thought I was done because I don't like doing what everybody else is doing. I like to dance to my own drum. But I especially love to be at the zeitgeist of something new and be part of something new, or even be the bringer of something new if I'm so lucky as to be that. So I thought, well, I got to end this somehow. Now at this point, I remember I'd already talked with the networks about producing the Beyond Survival series and going off in this new direction. They still were happy with me and everything, so going off in a new direction suited them just fine. They're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. This was meant to be my preamble to lead me to that. So let's just watch this outro. Here we go.
Into jungles and deserts, on the ocean, in the forests, in the cold and the heat, and survived alone, without food, water, gear, camera crew, often with no backup support. And now I go on to a village in the remote jungles of Papua New Guinea, where they will celebrate my final ever Survivorman. It's fitting that it's here in Papua New Guinea, a very primeval forest, where survival is extremely difficult. But survival, that's just the beginning. What comes next is a step beyond.
And that was totally on purpose. What comes next is a step beyond. And if you think about it, it says 23 times. I've done 23 episodes at this point. And I wanted to say something that I said just there. Let me go back a second. I want to comment on something. Let me go back. Okay, let's try that.
And now I go on to a village in the remote jungles of Papua New Guinea, where they will celebrate my final ever Survivorman.
Right. And so what happened was, after this, I did some kind of an interview through what's called routers. I think it was someone in Australia or something like that. And they completely misrepresented and mistook what I had said and made it far more dramatic. And then there were headlines that came out later, not headlines, but, secondary and thirdary, if that's a word, headlines down there about Survivorman, stops doing it because it's taking a toll on his body and everything. And that's not at all what I said to her. I might have said that there's great difficulties in doing what I do and that, I'm actually doing it, so I have to take this time in between. But I never said I was quitting because of the physicality of it. But she printed that anyway, and it went out like that. And that I saw those little mini headlines all over the place. Wasn't true. Wasn't true at all. Never. I did not say that. But I did say that I was finished doing Survivorman.
It's fitting that it's here in Papua New Guinea, a very primeval forest, where survival is extremely difficult. But survival, that's just the beginning. What comes next is a step beyond.
And a step beyond is what I was originally going to title the series Beyond Survival.
This Sing Sing, as they call it, is a celebration for returning from a kill, a human kill. The killing of either someone they suspected of being a witch, a lone thief, or maybe even an entire village. It was done in my honor for surviving in the jungle, but they take it seriously. Today marks the first time in history that this village has ever been filmed, that these Hewa have ever been filmed performing a sing-sing, and it's definitely the first time in history that a white man will be welcomed to join in.
Now, I could go on on a rant. I won't right now. I will for another time. Maybe on my podcast. If you've never listened to my podcast, Surviving Life with Les Stroud, available on all the usual podcast platforms. And I will at some point address the concept of cultural appropriation. I think it's drastically overstated, and the term is very much misused in the reality of what cultural appropriation really and truly is. In my situation, and I guess we'll get into it when we get into the series Beyond Survival, in a case like this, you're dealing with people who are thrilled and honored to be connected to you and working with you and teaching you and showing you things, and more than anything, sharing with you their culture. And I loved being a part of indigenous and more earth-connected, and I will not say primitive, more earth-connected cultures around the world. This was just the beginning.
In the event,
Understand, they didn't give me a choice as to whether or not I was going to be involved. They basically grabbed me and said, do what we do.
adventure known as life, there are those who live it vicariously and enjoy the ride from the safety of an armchair. And that's good. There are those who have a few chances to realize incredible and life-changing experiences, and though they don't repeat them, they carry with them a growth in personal philosophy for the rest of their lives. And there are those for whom a taste is never enough, for whom the lust of adventure is nearly insatiable. And if you add to that the overwhelming desire to create and to share, then you get where I reside. For the end of one adventure only signifies the beginning of another.
And that was my big kind of sign-off for Survivorman. And obviously it was not to be the end, not by a long shot. But I was genuine in that I thought it was. And I still have that photograph hanging on my wall downstairs, as a matter of fact. All right, well, that is it, guys. That is the end of the director's commentaries for leading up to the end of season 3. There are many more for me to do. In fact, I'm probably only halfway there. And I will be getting to whatever I did next. I'm not sure if I did Beyond Survival next, or Bigfoot next, or 10 Days with Mexico and Norway, Survivorman and Son. There's a lot of shows yet to do, and I'm really enjoying doing these. So that's what's coming next. All right, I gotta take my dogs for a walk. See you next time. Oh, hey, Luke. Show them my stuff now. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out, Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there, so just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which is a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Tamagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship, and you will see these items, new forging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book well, it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out. Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients? Hey there! Oh! Go on! Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Cannellan. It's on National Geographic. Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lestroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website. You can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. So this is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning La Loche about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video.